Death is something one should dwell on because it comes for all. To introspectively ponder death is to choose wisdom. Timing our days is the act of a soul that bears the fruit of understanding, a fruit so sweet that it eclipses the general preponderance who are certain that they have more than enough time. The odds of a man being born are 1 in 400 trillion, whereas a man meeting death is 1 in 1. Men since the beginning of time have tried to conquer death. Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China, gave imperial orders to his entire empire to search for the elixir of life to subdue death. Genghis Khan inquired of a monk in the Hindu Kush for medicine that could grant eternal life. Emperor Wudi of the Han dynasty squandered funds executing alchemists for failing to give him the gift of eternal life. What are the alternatives if human effort will remain void in the self-actualization of eternal life? Can a man transcend mortality? How could a man possibly bend the will of biology and obtain eternal life? It's impossible to do the former or the latter, but there is one exception, one word, one concept: glory. The word glory came from the Latin word gloria, which means renown or fame. To obtain glory is to immortalize one's name. Though we will die, the making of history, the fame of our deeds will conquer time, preventing us from being forgotten and inspiring generations to come in the act of becoming. Glory is the byproduct of a relentless animal-like instinct to reach self-actualization and cross the limits of human ability. Ancient Romans, specifically Roman consuls, were always on a quest to increase individual greatness, virtue, martial power, and sociological authority. Upon becoming consul, imperium is granted, which is the absolute authority and power to command legions. However, consuls were only granted the office for a short term of 12 months. This short period of office sparked a profound sense of urgency to which consuls would intentionally and aggressively seek conflicts across border lines, provoking foreign tribes and embarking on grand campaigns. This was a realm in which an individual could be given free rein to exercise their ambition. In Roman society, ambition and glory went hand in hand, which could give a Roman aristocrat immense dignitas, lifetime influence, as well as the continuity of generational privilege and Roman power. In the First Punic War, Marcus Atilius Regulus, the Roman consul, invaded North Africa with success up until he was decisively defeated by Carthage at the Battle of Tunis, led by the Spartan general Xanthippus. Regulus was then taken into captivity, to which he remained for years. Eventually, the Carthaginians had a desire to negotiate a peace treaty and a prison exchange with Rome. They decided to use Regulus as an envoy, but made him swear a sacred oath. If he went to his brethren and they rejected the terms of the peace treaty, he must come back to captivity and therefore meet his fate by execution. Regulus arrived in the Roman Senate. Rather than persuading the Romans to accept the terms of peace, he specifically told them to reject it, that peace would be a delusion, further claiming that Carthage was weak and would thus lose the war. The Senate took his counsel and rejected peace. Before Regulus made his leave, the Senate and his family begged him to not depart, arguing that the oath he made with Carthage was invalid, but Regulus refused. Fides, which means trustworthiness, was everything to a Roman. Breaking a sacred oath would destroy their fides, reputation, and family name. So Regulus willingly left Rome to go back to captivity. Regulus was then tortured to death and brutally executed. Objectively, Regulus failed militarily, destroyed his army, and died in the hands of his enemy. Nonetheless, he obtained glory. The Romans were awestruck and used him as an archetype of moral virtue. Horace the poet immortalized Regulus in his Odes, illustrating Regulus going past his weeping family to return to Carthage like he was going on a mere tranquil holiday, walking into what he described as exile and glory. Poetically, Regulus won despite defeat by putting honor and the longevity of Rome over his mortal life, subsequently obtaining glory irrespective of martial weakness. Like how glory was derivative of exploits in battle and conquest, reason, character, and honor are also fruits of glory. To use the promise of death and the extremely rare odds of being born as primal fuel for human excellence, discipline of the body, honor, and a lifetime quest of creative exploits is what brings forth self-actualization, purpose, peace, and respect. Most are comfortable with living normal lives, coasting in obscurity, but this reality to a brilliant soul is nothing short of psychological terror and existential dread. In 69 BCE, Julius Caesar was a junior magistrate serving in Spain. He was around 32 years old, in debt, and performing the tedious tasks of administrative work daily. In Gades, he came into the temple of Hercules and stood before the statue of Alexander the Great. In the accounts of Suetonius and Plutarch, they stated the profound distress Caesar was in upon pondering the statue. Caesar in grief said, "Do you think I have not just cause to weep when I consider that Alexander at my age had conquered so many nations, and I have all this time done nothing that is memorable?" To the average citizen, a mundane and generic life is okay. To not want more is normal. But to the ambitious, this is a fallacy because it poses the risk of fading into eternal oblivion without even crossing the lines of dominion and overcoming the odds of fate. Even the thought of being among the dead as just another regular man in the dirt is enough to plunge an individual into the unending quest of conquering time through brilliant exploits and powerful deeds. To passively cruise through the gift of life would be a treacherous betrayal of destiny, so Caesar decided to head back to Rome at once, which resulted in him actively looking for military commands. Caesar was the embodiment of high risk, high reward, enforcing astronomical levels of audacity against foreigners in conquest and against his own people in war. Caesar conquered Gaul, Tunisia, and Egypt, and he led campaigns against Spain, Britain, and Germany. Caesar spent 9 continuous years in Gaul, engaging in perpetual conflict against Celtic and Germanic tribes alongside the Helvetii. He crushed Vercingetorix, a powerful Gallic chieftain who unified Gaul against Caesar at the Battle of Alesia. He also crossed into Britain against British tribes for helping the Gauls during his campaigns, but his fleet was wrecked at sea. He returned a second time with 5 legions and 2,000 cavalry, forcing his way across the Thames, defeating Cassivellaunus and installing Mandubratius as a client king and demanding of him yearly tribute to Rome. Before declaring war on the Roman Senate and Pompey the Great, he famously said, "The die is cast," betting his life against the overwhelming odds stacked against him. Ultimately, he won the war through his overwhelming speed, audacity, and urgency. The list of his exploits goes on and on, living such a distinguished life that his name then became a title of supreme authority used by Roman emperors after the fall of the Republic, as well as Germany's Kaiser or Russia's Tsar. George Washington fought with the British against the French during the French and Indian War, but was rejected as an official officer in the British Army, since the British elite thought Americans inferior second-class citizens, which fueled his contempt and anger of British colonial pride. After the British Empire's war with France, they found themselves in immense debt, to which they began robbing American colonists of their political and economic rights, taxing them without political representation. The British thought it was the Americans' responsibility to pay the debt, since a large part of the war was defending American colonies. Since the Americans had no representatives in Parliament to vote on these laws, they viewed the British as a tyranny, robbing the American nation of its resources. After 10 years of vain peaceful protests, George Washington rejected his allegiance to the king, committing treason against the British Empire. All the American colonies united and appointed George Washington as their head, creating America's first national army, the Continental Army. In 1783, after winning the war, Washington pulled the Augustus. He resigned from his supreme command and went back home to his farm. Some of his officers suggested he even become King of America, to which King George III said, "If he does that, he will be the greatest man in the world." After the United States Constitution was drafted, George Washington was chosen as the first president of America, ushering in a new era and government free from British tyranny. George Washington was not an intellectual, neither did he have education, but was a brilliant leader and shepherd in times of crisis, setting his name in an eternal stone that cannot be robbed by time. Soft times create soft men, and hard times create strong men who can take the scepter and fulfill their destiny. Modernity has unfortunately sedated men's drives and senses of urgency. As you live, calculate how many years you may have on earth and let it spark a sense of adventure in you, an instinct to separate yourself from the herd and embark on an almost metaphysical path to self-discovery. The pursuit of glory in itself is vanity. Glory is but a byproduct of powerful wills, shrewd leaders, cultivated virtues, and creative individuals with profound instincts of being set apart from the rest of the world.